Latte has been serving up gourmet soups, sandwiches, and salads in a relaxed cafeteria setting. Everything's made fresh with real ingredients, no artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Located off Victoria and Grand. Learn more or place your order at cafelatte.com. That's cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. In the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. In the afternoon drive and nighttime hours in Seattle, 1150 AM KKNW. And, of course, on BAM, Blue Amp Media, blueamp.co on Substack. That's blueamp.co on Substack. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Tuesday. Good to have you here with us today. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. We are guest-free this hour. Next hour, we have Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer going to join us. We'll be talking about, I'm sure we'll be talking about, we'll be talking about it. Patrick, good to see you today. How are you today?
Doing pretty well. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. I want to make sure I mention to the many people who have reached out, and we're very happy we did the live version of all the shows we had here yesterday. And some people had actually asked the question about how do I get, hear some of the other shows. And of course, the Gailey Show is the one that's on right before mine here on the mothership station AM 950 in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And you can listen to John and Jim. Just find your favorite podcast spot, the Gailey Show, as well as you can go over to for Native Roots Radio, I Am Awake, which is a Robert Pilot show, which is on after my show here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You can find his show and podcast it at your favorite location. And I should mention as well, Ghost Box Radio with Greg Bakken. That's on at 10 o'clock local time here in the central United States. And of course, once again, podcastable. And as a matter of fact, labeled one of the better podcasts of the genre. In America. You can go listen to that. Ghost Box Radio with Greg Bakken available. But it was very nice, and it was to a point. It was a good thing to kind of have the ability to take some time and process the execution of Alex Preddy and also the actions of the last few days. I will say I'm going to try to get into a few other things here today. I'll give you an idea. I'm going to come back here in the back half hour of this hour and talk a lot about Alex Preddy and of course the ICE occupation of Minnesota. But I'll get there in a second. But one thing I did want to make sure I say for everyone here in the Twin Cities and nationwide, if you think because we got rid of Bilbo Hitler and sent him packing that this is over, you're a fool. I just saw. I'm 15 minutes ago. I just saw a social media post from ICE, which basically described all the protesters as violently swarming and attacking our innocent little ICE agents, and then listed the worst people they have picked up as the people we're trying to protect, which is just so garbage. It's just such a garbage thing. It's once again the vilification of the people of Minneapolis. We're protesting you not because you actually have warrants to go get the actual criminals and get them out of here, which once again, we've talked about. They've arrested over 3,000 people. They've only released the names of, I think it was 280 people or 260 people. And only part of those people had criminal records. But the reason why you got those people pretty quickly, because they were in prisons and you did get warrants and you just went over there and you got them, and good for you. That's what you're supposed to do. Nobody here is complaining about that. What we're complaining about is the two dead people in the street because your inexperienced, incel-laden January 6th insurrectionist overrun jackassery of a federal police squad has decided that you are going to just start gunning down U.S. citizens in the street. The arresting of little children and you acting as if they're serial rapists or fentanyl dealers. The using of children as bait. Your insanely out of control, hyper-aggressive tactics towards peaceful protesters. That's what we're complaining about. You guys, and you're feeling like we are some sort of enemy territory that has to be reined on in. Screw you. But for anyone out there that is of the mindset of that this is something that is over, you can't fool yourself. This isn't over. And trust me when I say there's a lot of ICE agents that are furious that they weren't able to kill as many of us and pile us up as like firewood in the streets of Minneapolis. There are an insane amount of these ICE clowns that are out there, Border Patrol and ICE clowns, that want to kill as many Minnesotans as possible. So it just is. I don't know what else we can do here outside of just keep protesting and keep vigilant. I got more on this. I'll get to that here in a little bit. I will say it is nice to be able to broach on a little bit of a lighter topic per se. That is Melania Trump. If you did not see the upcoming Melania Trump documentary, also has reports of potentially performing poorly at the box office, and a new report suggests that Amazon MGM Studios' marketing budget for the film has reached shocking levels. According to a new report from Puck's Matthew Baloney, which Amazon MGM Studios had paid $40 million for. The movie, that's how much they paid for the movie, is getting a surprisingly high marketing budget for its push. He notes that Mike Hopkins, Amazon's top content executive, has approved at least $35 million to go into the promotions of the film. So basically, they're almost spending as much money to promote the film as they are on the film. That number is high, especially for a documentary film. To compare, Baloney noted that Amazon spent far less on P&A costs for Taylor Swift's concert documentary, a movie that almost certainly had significantly more popularity behind it. However, Baloney notes that the cost put behind the Melania movie may have more to do with the company's relationship with President Trump, mentioning that Amazon paying $40 million for the film was widely perceived as a barely veiled payoff to keep him happy. Of course it was. Seriously. If this movie gets released, I got a theory on the $35 million. I got a theory on that. I'll get to that here in a second. But if this movie just got released in the theaters, it would bomb horrifically. So they have to basically kind of push this. The internet did mock Trump Monday as he attempted to promote his wife's documentary, Melania, with plenty of good people pointing out the ticket sales don't appear to be looking too good. The documentary was set to be released on Friday. It was co-produced and directed by Brett Ratner, who has been accused of rape and sexual misconduct. You know, a buddy of Trump's. You know, it's just you. They used to be with the white supremacy organization. Did they? Really? Wow. It's kind of a surprise. Well, I guess not so much. You know, these guys have a type. You know what I mean? In December, the Department of Justice released thousands of files connected to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, including a photo of Ratner embracing shirtless Jean-Luc Brunel, a French model scout and owner of the international modeling agency MC2 Modeling Management, a modeling agent with considerable financial support from Epstein. Brunel died in 2022 of apparent suicide while waiting to trial on sex trafficking charges, and in a manner not dissimilar to how Epstein died in 2019. It's almost like somebody's trying to get rid of all the people that could incriminate one large orange man. On social media, users were quick to point out the theater seats appear to be very open. So, and that's, you know, this is one of the things that's changed in my life. You used to go to a theater, you'd go buy a ticket, and you just went in and sat down. Nowadays, you got to go get all the tickets and all that stuff. And to a point, I get it. And I'm not too bothered by it. But I will say that it's pretty hilarious to me that they're going up and looking at whatever it is, AMC or, you know, whatever theater group it is. And they're able to see what seats are available. And apparently there's not many that have been sold. This is the only theater near me opening night this Friday at 9:40 p.m. Every seat is still available. Hal from New York wrote, "Yeah, man, packed house for sure," said John Borshad. "Selling out fast. Only 2 tickets sold for opening day at all," said one other user. Which brings me back to the $35 million. I want to remind people of the movie Sound of Freedom, which was this idea. Now, once again, I want to remind everyone, Donald Trump raped children, and he is the pedophile in chief. And this is why he's terrified of releasing the Epstein files, is because he had sex with kids. And he supplied kids through Mar-a-Lago to be raped by other people. And he seems to have a treasure trove of friends and buddies and close associates that he wants to impress that were also raping children. So it was funny that the Republicans put out Sound of Freedom, which was about this honorable man who quit his job to go fight and hunt for child sex traffickers. Which, once again, if you ever heard the story about the guy that did this, he himself participated. Yeah, it's that common MAGA thing where they're guilty of it, but they act as if they're the great savior of it. That guy seemed to have been, I can't remember, it was him or the director or whatever it was. He basically himself participated in, violating minors and acted like this was some sort of noble act. But if you remember back then when that movie came out, it was being, the right wing was saying it's selling out nationwide. And people started saying, well, if it's selling out nationwide, how come the movie theaters are empty? So I went myself to go see a different movie, not that movie, for God's sakes, no. It's like any of these right-wing movies that they're trying now to sell. No, hard pass. I went and saw a different movie, but I noticed that Sound of Freedom was playing before my movie and after my movie. So I went into the movie theater before that movie, and there was nobody in there. Then after my movie was over, I went into that same movie theater again, which was supposedly showing another sold-out presentation, not a single person in the theater. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I went to the front of the theater, took a picture of all the empty seats and said, full house, and posted it, if I remember correctly, on some of the social media pages. This is what I believe is going to happen with Melania's film. That Amazon, because they basically just want to be on Trump's good side. And once again, that means they're against the rest of us. If you're for Trump, you're not really for the rest of the American people. Let's just be honest about it. But to keep them happy, they're going to buy out every theater in the country for a few days, just as the overwhelming people showing up, which leads me to just say this, because this movie is opening in theaters. If you do get the chance to go into a theater and see how many people are in there, if it's empty, take a picture of the empty theater and post it online saying, Melania. Be best. Yeah, okay. All righty. Even if I was wearing that god-awful hat of yours that basically blocked out the sun, I wouldn't go see that film. Not in a million years. Not in a million years. All righty. We'll take a break. Come on back. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
Hi, I'm Mary T. I'm a proud supporter of AM 950 because this station shares the values that I care about most: community, connection, and making a difference. Just like AM 950, I believe in using our energies, our resources, and our voices to lift up others. That's why I started the Mary T. Scholar Program at the University of Minnesota College of Education and Human Development, providing graduate students with internships internationally. For over the past 10 years, our students have served communities in Laos, Cambodia, Nepal, India, Cameroon, and Thailand, gaining experience and helping people in ways that really make a difference. Supporting AM 950 fosters conversation, awareness, and action in our communities. It's about shared values and believing that together we can make a difference. Visit MaryTinc.com to learn more about the work that we do.
Uncover the rich history of Minnesota through Whoosh, a lively and deeply moving ghost tale. Solo artist Andrew Erskine Wheeler masterfully brings to life a range of characters, intertwining the rich history of St. Anthony Falls in the post-Civil War era with the story of its Irish heritage. This award-winning show weaves a hauntingly local and unforgettable ghost story through compelling song and storytelling. The History Theater's Whoosh plays January 29th through February 22nd. Find tickets at historytheater.com.
Hey, this is Andy Otto, Executive Director of Twin Cities Pride and your host of Twin Cities Pride Amplified. Our community needs your help. Twin Cities Pride is collecting donations to help our local community in need. We're collecting everything from shelf-stable food to household cleaning supplies, infant care items, and personal care products at our Pride Cultural Arts Center. If you're looking to help, reach out to us at info@tcpride.org or just stop by 1201 Harmon Place in Minneapolis. It's our time to take care of our community and take care of each other all year long.
At Schroman Law, we provide more than just legal documents. We walk alongside our clients to ensure their wishes and legacies are being honored with every choice. And we do this while recognizing that this process can be emotional and weighty. Our team includes attorneys, as well as a grief coach and a published writer ready to assist with legacy letters and extra wishes to go alongside your healthcare directive. Contact us today to learn more at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
Greg Bakken here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. Nice to have you. And by the way, worldwide on Blue Amp Media, I'm hearing from a lot of people around the globe, man. That is cool. Hi. Nice to be with you. It's nice to be on Blue Amp there. A great lineup of well, let's put it this way. I'm the brown shoes on that tux. Everyone else on there is fantastic. This is, I'm glad you're with me. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. I'll get back to more of the coverage of the of what's going on in Minneapolis here in a sec. But I did want to make sure I mentioned some economic news because, all right, you've heard me now for basically over a year saying, okay, the economics of Trump don't make any sense. They just don't. And ever since he did his little tariff day stunt where he applied tariffs and he basically almost single-handedly in one day sent this country into a depression, the economy has not been acting well. And as a matter of fact, I've been very vocal. The only two things that seem to be positive in any capacity are the stock market, which doesn't make any sense because all this economic news prior to this term of Trump would have implications on the stock market, and they just don't seem to. And the other one is the crypto market, which it is not a legitimate market. That's a Ponzi scheme disguised as a currency. And trust me, when that thing collapses, there's going to be like 20 people worldwide that's got all the money, and the rest of you are going to be out of it. And especially, it will be to a point. It's going to be incredibly tragic because it's going to hurt a lot of people. But a lot of these guys are going to be these kind of douchey dudes that want to, dude, man, let me show you my boat. And that guy's like, man, I got to go work at DoorDash. It's going to be, yeah, you trusted crypto? Okay, good for you. But I'm actually wondering if we're starting to see signs of cracks in the stock market because the Dow was down pretty dramatically while the NASDAQ and the S&P were up today. And I'll get to why. I mean, it's the healthcare stocks, but I mean, they seem to, the Dow itself seems to be getting a lot more frenetic. And it's either feast or famine on that one right now. And I think that this is the strains of the AI bubble really starting to show that, we're starting to get fairly wild swings, 300, 400 points in a day on a consistent basis. That tells me the Dow might be starting to get to its limits of how much they can ignore the rest of reality. For example, Americans' confidence in the economy plunged to the start of the year to the lowest in 12 years. Now, I want to stop really quick, and I want to make sure we understand what we just said there. This is the lowest level in 12 years. Which means consumer confidence right now is less than it was during the COVID epidemic. Yeah, that's not good. That the entire time consumer confidence during the pandemic was higher than it is now. This is amid consumer angst about prices and pessimism about the job market. Well, considering that, once again, all those stock market guys, all those people that own all the stocks, the reason they're making money is that they're using AI tools to cut as many jobs as possible, which means they're taking that money and jamming it in their pocket. Yeah, there's a bit of a job problem right now. Hey, Bob, you're no longer a senior level manager. You're now delivering for DoorDash. That's a bit of a problem on a lot of levels. The Conference Board's long-running Consumer Confidence Index fell 9.7 points in January to 84.5 from a revised 94.2 in December. The steep drop is seen across both survey respondents' assessment of the present situation and their expectations of the future, aka they don't see bright sunshine coming anytime soon. The index is now below even its levels at the depths of the global pandemic, when unemployment peaked at nearly 15%. By the way, yeah, if unemployment is only at 4.4% and you basically are getting worse economic sentiment than when the unemployment numbers were at 15%. And by the way, I don't think the unemployment number is at 4.4. I think it's a lot worse, and they're hiding that. But it tells you the share of consumers who say their jobs are plentiful plunged from 23.9. Well, it's not a lot of people anyway. Only 23.9% of people said there was tons of jobs. That's down to 27.5 in December. Similarly, 13.9% expected more jobs to be available in the 6 months compared to 17.4 in December. So most people are anticipating this year going to be horrible. The data points are just the latest evidence the Americans perceive a much weaker labor market and economy than we're being told exists. Now, this is not just this market or one number. I will say that there's another one. This is the housing market. I mean, we talked about the ag market's in trouble, the housing market's in trouble, commodity markets are in trouble. The housing market, this is weird. Serious headwinds in the housing market and the broader economy are tanking home sales at an alarming rate. More than 40,000 signed home purchase agreements were canceled in December. Now, it depends on the state. I think this is a state-by-state rule. So Patrick, my producer, say I'm going to buy Patrick's house, and I sign an agreement to buy your house. Patrick, is it a nice house?
It's a nice house.
All right, there you go. I'm going to sign the agreement. Most states, and I believe Minnesota is like this, where I'm at right now, and I think a lot of other states are like this, you have time to undo the signature. You can have, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, you have, maybe it's a week. I don't know I think that varies state by state. But there is usually a grace period where if you decide you don't want to buy the house, you can. That's what we're talking about here. People who have signed purchase agreements to buy a house who have basically then come back and said, no, we're not going to do this. 40,000 is a hell of a lot for 1 month on that. That should be kind of a fringe thing. And that tells you, I think in December, a lot of people started realizing, oh, this is getting pretty bad. That was basically, to give you an idea, if you say 40,000 doesn't sound like much, that's 16.3% of all the houses that were sold. So basically, that'd be 83.7% of houses that had contracts sold. 16.3 didn't sell. They basically got out of the sale, which is an insanely high number. If you get to that point, you're thinking to yourself, the sale is done. Redfin is the person that was the group that put this out. That the number previous December of 2024 was 14.9. So this is a record high, the highest share since Redfin began tracking the metric in 2017. High housing costs and rising inventory have made home buyers more selective. From the head economic research guy at Redfin. Home sellers outnumber buyers by a record margin, meaning the buyers who are in the market have options and many walk away if they believe they can find a better, more affordable home. What does that tell you? It tells you that people are dropping the prices of houses right now, that the housing market is starting to really lose its luster. And that it's all of a sudden you're realizing you can't ask $400,000 for that house. You're having to ask $350,000. And yeah, that has a lot of impact too. The other thing that happened today, this is actually one of the main reasons why the stock market was down, was shares of several big name healthcare companies plunged Tuesday after the Trump administration proposed flat rates for Medicare Advantage insurance. They can't give any more money because all that money's gone to the millionaires and billionaires. So they're basically now coming back to the guys that do the Medicare Advantage plans and saying, you can't get any more money. It should tell you a lot about how much money these guys pocket from these programs, the fact that just keeping this at the same level is tanking their stocks. Humana, CVS Health, United Health Group, all lost revenue. United Health Group lost more than 19% following that news. Yikes. Ugh. It's not a good economy, folks. We'll take a break, come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
The Tom Hartman Show now. That's Smart Radio, AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hey, Francois, have you made any New Year's resolutions?
No.
Well, mine is to learn some French. Can you help me?
Bien sûr.
How do you say this? Can I buy you?
Est-ce que je peux t'acheter
Macaroons from Nicolette's.
des macarons de Nicolette?
Now, say it all at once.
Est-ce que je peux t'acheter des macarons de Nicolette?
Oh, absolutely. I'll have a box of raspberry rose, blueberry cheesecake, and chocolate.
Mais c'est quoi ça?
Thank you, Francois. You can order them online at nicoletsmacaroons.com or visit their store in Plymouth. Merci.
AM 950 would like to thank everyone who joined and donated during our winter membership drive. Your support shows that Minnesotans still value an independent progressive radio station that delivers facts, not spin. AM 950 is locally owned, based right here in the Twin Cities, and dedicated to uplifting small businesses and diverse communities. At a time when some voices are being pushed aside, AM 950 refuses to be silenced. Please help keep progressive radio on the air. Visit am950radio.com and donate today.
Theater in the Round Players is kicking off the year with a beautiful new production of How to Catch Creation. It's a soulful drama centered on the powerful legacy of a Black feminist writer from the 1960s. Her story reaches across time, weaving together the lives of 4 artists searching for art, family, and a place to belong. You'll be captivated by this profound exploration of identity. Experience How to Catch Creation at Theater in the Round now through February 8th. Tickets at theaterintheround.org.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Pretty much everybody I talk to is ready to leave 2025 behind. So what better way to do that than quite literally have Zero Res come over and clean that 2025 dirt out of the house? Pretty much any surface in your home can be Zero Resified, from carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, hardwood, and so much more. Zero Res can take care of it all, so it's time to call the cleaning pros. Start your freshest year yet in 2026 with Zero Res's biggest sale ever in celebration of the new year, and wash 2025 right out of your home with this deal. This month, you can get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $119 and a free hallway, plus 15% off regularly priced services like air ducts, upholstery, area rugs, tile, hardwood, and more. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 8, tonight clear with a low of 2 below, and Wednesday sunny with a high near 7. Since 1984, Cafe Latte has been serving up gourmet soup, sandwiches, and salads in a relaxed cafeteria setting. Everything's made fresh with real ingredients, no artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Located off Victoria and Grand, learn more or place your order at cafelatte.com. That's cafelatte.com.
ATNF AM 950, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Give me a kiss to build a dream on.
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. In the afternoon drive and late night here in Seattle, 1150 AM KKNW on BAM, Blue Amp Media, blueamp.co on Substack, and of course, at the mothership where I am your mother. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday night. Thanks to be here once again. Patrick Cooligan joining us from the Minnesota Reformer next hour. Now, I want to take some time to go over some stuff that's going on in Minneapolis, because I think we all in town are breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, because I think that clearly after the murder of Alex Preddy by Border Patrol agents and what looked to be the ramping up by ICE to do a militarized takeover of the city, which they abandoned once they realized that Minneapolis police and the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, BCA, and of course National Guard were going to come on out. Things, obviously Saturday was a day of mourning and a day of sadness, and a day of anger and frustration. Sunday was a day where, for the people here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, there was the first glimmers of hope, because the unbelievable lies that the Trump administration was telling about this were starting to get punched through. That basically the reality of it, and I have said from the get-go, get these little glowing rectangles we got, get them out, film, make sure you're taking film all the time when you confront these guys, because that is a prime example of, they would have vilified Alex Preddy to the nth degree. The Minnesota Republican Party would have, the Trump administration, DHS, everyone would have turned on him and made him the greatest villain of all time, outside of the fact that we had video footage from every freaking angle that showed what really happened. So things started the cloud started to break a little bit. Yesterday, the removal of Bovino and Holman coming on in, who's already apparently met with Walz and Jacob Fry here in Minnesota, was a sign of brightness, to a point that things, at least we're getting rid of that little freaking Nazi. And and I'm not saying Holman's necessarily better, but I think he was better than tiny T-Rex there. But if you think for 1 second this is over, it's not over. And ICE agents are still out there. I got some stories coming up here in the next hour I'll get to as well. And there is still a belligerence there, because one of the things that Governor Walz and Mayor Fry have said is they want to be involved in the investigation into the murder of Alex Preddy. And I said this yesterday, that the administration is fighting court orders saying to preserve all the evidence in the case. They don't want to preserve all the evidence, which should tell you a lot right there. MS Now basically reporting that the investigation into Preddy's killing by a Customs and Border Protection agent will be conducted by Customs and Border Protection. So basically, we'll tell you why we find this to be not murder. What's more, there will be no civil rights investigation into Preddy's killing, with the Trump administration saying, similar to Renee Good, the killing was by an ICE agent. Reminder, the Minnesota authorities, included Minnesota BCA, have been blocked from investigating the killing, as they were with Good. And Trump, less than an hour ago, said he wants an honorable and honest investigation, but Customs and Bureau Protection will not give that. I'm not going to. Trust is something that's earned. You guys keep saying you have to trust us, and we see a billion freaking reasons why we should not trust you. So if you want trust, you have to earn it by allowing Minnesota authorities, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, the BCA, to all be involved here. That would show us that you have some trust. But this idea is you basically giving us a million reasons why we shouldn't trust you and saying it's our problem because we're not showing trust. That's on you guys. That is just on you guys. More videos showing the run-up to Alex Preddy's shooting was revealed on Tuesday. He further contradicts the Trump administration's claims about the killing by immigration agents. The 37-year-old nurse was shot and killed Saturday by a federal officer during a confrontation on East Street in Minneapolis. They analyzed the new footage, CNN did, that starts about 7 minutes before the fatal encounter. So this actually is a substantial amount of footage prior to what most of us see as the beginning, which is the ICE agent coming across the street to confront protesters who had not encroached on them. Okay. This is Foreman. This is the guy from CNN. This video just gets worse and worse and worse for the White House and what they've been claiming. Let's start with the general setup here. It's about 7 minutes of video before all of this happens, and it puts everything in context. Let's first start with the general street scene here, and let's play out. What had happened, according to witnesses, is a group of ICE agents had been in pursuit of somebody who they say was an undocumented immigrant, who they say was dangerous. He ran into a building where the door were locked inside by the people inside, and so the ICE agents could not get into the building. Preddy and the other protesters, according to what we heard, were across the street shooting video. They were some distance away watching what was going on. And they were seeing this evolve on the other side of the street. So once again, this whole idea that they were incurring in on the ICE agents is just absolutely laughable. Foreman directed viewers to look at an image of an officer holding a pepper spray canister and pointed out the witnesses said a small group of observers were standing across the street. According to witnesses, only about 10 people across the street from them, not pushing up on them, not necessarily crowding them. He said, you can hear whistles in the background. It's a warning sign that many protesters have been out there. It says ICE is in the area. Now, what happens when you follow the next piece of the video here is that the agents, according to witnesses, and when you watch the video, they cross the street to actually engage in the peaceful protesters who are not doing a damn thing to them. So Preddy is there, and he is part of that group. And once again, they weren't engaging ICE. ICE went out of their way. And once again, I said this yesterday. This is an immigration force. What are you guys doing crowd control-wise? They're not bothering you. This is you guys went out of your way to basically start a conflict, which goes back to what else I said yesterday, which is that this was a planned retaliation after the city of Minneapolis on Friday said a big FU to ICE. The agents come across and engage with them, and that's when you see this moment where one of the agents pushes Preddy off the road, and you hear Preddy yelling, "Don't push me," he says. "I'm not in traffic. You're the one who's in traffic. You came in traffic to come over and push me." The video contradicts administration claims that Preddy and others gathered in the area were interfering with immigration enforcement. They weren't. So again, the notion of this being a riot, which we've heard many times, Foreman said that they may not like it, but this is hardly the definition of a riot. Then another person gets knocked to the ground and pinned down. If you look at the video, Preddy yells out in this video, "Hey, leave her alone." But he doesn't grab an officer. He doesn't approach officers. He just says, "Leave her alone," while they're pinning this person down. So again, all the indications in this video, which is again 6 or 7 minutes before the shooting, shows all the aggression coming from the ICE officers and the Border Patrol officers aimed at those people. Then finally, we move to the moment where they grab Preddy as he's trying to help a person who's also been pushed down. Foreman continued. When you see that video, the agents storm in. Look, they're shoving people. This woman goes to the ground. Preddy goes to help her. Remember, he's a nurse. He's trying to help his woman who's down on the ground, and the agents grab him while his back is turned and drag him to the center of people where they're all gathered around there. You can see one of them starts striking him in the head with some sort of device, or you see them smacking somebody in the head here, and then finally they reach the point where the gunfire breaks out. So was it a riot, the correspondent ended? It certainly doesn't look like one, unless you're talking about the riot of officers themselves. Was Preddy, did he have a weapon out that was showing anybody? No. There was no evidence of what that in the video. Was he grabbing or attacking the officers? No, there's no evidence of that at all. The more video we get, the worse and worse and worse it looks for the White House account of what went on. Yeah, they're lying. Once again, you need to trust us. You guys are lying. This is Don't Look Up. If you've not seen that movie, the entire concept is this MAGA-like politician, because she just doesn't want to, it's Meryl Streep playing the president. She doesn't want to acknowledge there's an asteroid that's going to blow up the planet. And so she basically convinces her followers to don't look up. If you look up, the liberals win, that sort of thing. And that's what it is don't look at the video footage, because it kind of annihilates their story. I want to talk about the gun as well, because there have been some people on the right-wing side of things who have tried their hardest to make the argument that Preddy was still at fault, even though he didn't fire the gun, because he was reckless with the gun. And the argument is that the first shot came from Preddy's own gun, that the person, the officer, Border Patrol agent, ICE agent, whoever, that grabbed the gun, when he whipped around away from Preddy, he accidentally fired a round. Okay, that's what they're saying. I'm going to call bull on this. I'm going to call bull on this for one reason. Preddy, no, I guess I haven't said my thoughts on the Second Amendment lately. I don't own a gun. I don't. I was in the military. I was in the U.S. Army. And if you fire weapons that are aimed at targets that look like human beings, you kind of figure out what guns are really for. And yeah, I'm done with them. Finished my military service and got done with them. Now, that being said, I don't really have any problem with hunting weapons or a personal defense pistol. I don't. I have a real big problem with semi-automatic weapons and assault weapons because there's not a single one of them that has been designed to hunt a duck or a moose or a deer. They were all, when somebody sat down with a piece of paper and a piece of design paper to start designing that weapon, the design of that weapon was to kill as many human beings as quickly and as fast as possible. The idea that we should allow regular citizens with no training and no experience and no brains to have that kind of tactical weapon is insanity. Now, that's my way I feel about it. And some people will say, well, why are you not against pistols? I grew up in a gun family and, hunting family. They hunted. And so I grew up around guns. And so to a point, I'm not totally them. I think that the modern definition of the Second Amendment is completely and totally insane. I do, absolutely. But I think that, if someone asked me, would you have a problem with a personal defense pistol? Yeah, the person is properly trained, licensed. They have to carry insurance on the gun. 100%. I don't really have a problem with that. But we don't have that system. Anyway, Preddy comes across to me as a guy who is a pretty responsible gun owner. He had a carrying concealed permit, and he had his gun in his back holster on his back pocket. I don't think he had the safety off on that because that's what idiots do. And that's how you pierce your butt cheek. Seriously, that's how you do it. You sit down and you have a gun that's not, the safety's not on. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, you're whistling with it. It's a lovely duet every time you have some gas. Anyway, no, he doesn't come across as a guy that would have a weapon without his safety on. So I think his safety was on, which means one of two things happened. That the guy that grabbed the gun somehow flipped the safety off, either intentionally or unintentionally, and fired the weapon, which is not, you have to, those are things, those click in. You can't really just kind of slide that. The whole point of a safety is not to make it easy to accidentally fire off a gun, So, I don't think that. There is one guy with his gun drawn, with his finger on the trigger, and every law enforcement firearms expert I have seen has said, what in the hell is that guy doing? I think that's where the first shot came from. It came from the agent who, whether intentionally or unintentionally, with his finger on the gun, shot into Alex Preddy, and then the rest of the agents opened fire on him as well. So I think that's kind of what happened. I want to just negate this because, once again, they're trying to find some way to blame Preddy for this. Preddy didn't do anything. This was all on ICE and border agents. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our listeners. How important are business values to you? When you need high-quality digital print, it matters who you work with. You see, Minuteman Uptown is unique. We're one of the only union print shops in Minnesota providing our team with living wages and benefits. We believe in second chances for justice-impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Crooners is a classic supper club with a wide range of entertainment. Make your reservations for a parade of international, national, and local artists in the main stage showroom, the intimate Dunsmore Jazz Room, or outdoors at the seasonal Belvedere Under the Stars space. Or enjoy Maggie's Piano Lounge. Enjoy 4-star food and drinks with first-class supper club service. What are you waiting for? Go to croonersmn.com for more information and schedule. That's croonersmn.com.
Get ready to zoom into a world full of color, música, and alegría at Children's Theater Company. Go Dog Go, Ve Pero Ve is a bilingual musical bursting with playful, high-speed energy as dogs drive, swim, and race to the big dog party. This joyful espectáculo blends English y Espanol with expressive, physical storytelling. Go Dog Go is sure to have you laughing, moving, and howling with delight. On stage January 20th through February 22nd. Tickets at childrenstheater.org.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Pretty much everybody I talk to is ready to leave 2025 behind. So what better way to do that than quite literally have Zero Res come over and clean that 2025 dirt out of the house. Pretty much any surface in your home can be Zero Resified, from carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, hardwood, and so much more. Zero Res can take care of it all, so it's time to call the cleaning pros. Start your freshest year yet in 2026 with Zero Res's biggest sale ever in celebration of the new year, and wash 2025 right out of your home with this deal. This month, you can get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $119 and a free hallway, plus 15% off regularly priced services like air ducts, upholstery, area rugs, tile, hardwood, and more. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. Thanks for being here with us today. 952-946-6205. First of all, I want to say that the as you can imagine, the polling on ICE has gone down just a smidge here. In June of last year, a poll, this is a CBS YouGov poll, showed 62% of Americans favored deporting all undocumented immigrants. But as Trump administration has carried out ICE raids, public opinion has soured. Once again, all of these people voted for this. And this idea that whenever I run into a Republican who's like, well, I wasn't for this. No, you guys were. And even into summer of last year, you guys were all like, this is great. Go get them. It was only when they got what I guess would be their easier, softer targets. But Stephen Miller, the racist, in over there in the White House administration. Well, I guess I can't really say that because there's so many. The guy that basically looks like he's a cannibal. That's him. Yeah, that guy. So the Nazi cannibal, Stephen Miller. That one's going to stick. The Nazi cannibal, Stephen Miller. He basically, he put out his, I want 3,000 people a day. And that's when things started going sideways. And that's when all of a sudden they started saying, well, that person looks a little bit darker than pale, so go get him. And that's when things started going south. And that's when all these Republicans were like, well, I wasn't for that. Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were. You proudly voted for it. You supported it up until you saw the policy that you voted for in action. And all of a sudden, somewhere down in that deep, dark heart of your Republican soul, all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. That looks really bad when you see screaming kids being dragged from parents. Well, I wasn't for that. Yeah, you were. You basically devolved. And the heck with you. This is all your fault. A new YouGov poll found that 46% of Americans somewhat or strongly support abolishing ICE, more than 41% who somewhat strongly oppose getting rid of the agent or against getting rid of the agency. So another 12% are unsure. So now more people, and this poll was done after the shooting of Preddy, more people want ICE abolished than want to keep it now. So speaking of getting rid of the trash there, House Democrats on Tuesday told Trump to fire Kristi Noem or they would launch impeachment proceedings against the Homeland Security Secretary in response to the weekend killing of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. The ultimatum came after a majority of the House Democrats caucus signed on to the articles of impeachment introduced earlier in the month in response to the shooting death of Renee Good, who, like Preddy, was a U.S. citizen killed by federal agents during an increasingly violent immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis's Minnesota's largest city. The violence unleashed on the American people by the Department of Homeland Security must end forthwith. Kristi Noem should be fired immediately, or we will commence impeachment proceedings in the House of Representatives, said House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, along with his two deputies, Catherine Clark and Pete Aguilar, in a joint statement. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Trump appeared to back Noem earlier today, telling reporters at the White House, I think she's doing a very good job. The border is totally secure. Sure it is. Illinois Congresswoman Robin Kelly introduced the articles of impeachment, and 145 of 213 House Democrats have signed onto it as co-sponsors as of Monday, according to a spokesperson from their office. The group includes Democrats occupying safe seats and those invulnerable and losing re-election, among them Pat Ryan and Lauren Gillen of New York, Greg Landsman of Ohio, and Dave Min of California. I'm just going to say this, guys. If you can't go into your districts and sell authoritarianism out of control as a way to say, well, you better keep me or it's going to get worse, then you probably shouldn't be a candidate. Okay? I don't mean to be cruel, but and we haven't even gotten to the economy. Remember I talked about the economy earlier and boom, goes the dynamite? Yeah. That's going to weigh on them immensely. And I think part of this is there are just too many weak Democrats that just, well, if I go out there and talk about how bad they basically are putting forward this Nazi-esque regime, then I'm going to sound like a meaty pants. And I want to have lunch with those guys if I come back. I'm tired of, stop. If you don't want to defend democracy, then please, any of these guys, Ryan, Gillen, Landsman, Min, resign. Please resign. Let someone else run for your seat who's actually going to give a F about protecting this country. But if you can't run against this authoritarian dictatorship and basically win an election, well, then you shouldn't be in Congress anyway. End of story. So yeah, I'm glad that some of you guys, I guess, basically murdering people in the streets finally you found some level of courage here. In the Senate, Democrats have vowed to block the measure funding the Department of Homeland Security because it includes money for immigration and customs enforcement, while an increasing number of senators have joined calls for Noem's ouster. Fetterman, a moderate representing a swing state of Pennsylvania, who has signaled skepticism towards the party's strategy on Homeland Security funding, addressed a direct appeal for immunity to fire Noem to Trump. Americans have died. She is betraying DHS's core mission and trashing your border security legacy, Fetterman wrote. Like a real Democrat there, talking about Trump's legacy on the border. Fetterman's just the latest. Kristen Sinema mansion. This is why I'm a little concerned about a certain person running for Senate here in Minnesota, because it seems like they get in there and all of a sudden they get a ton of money to be as moderate and your job is to sweep the leg on all the Democratic bills, and I'm not a big fan of that. So choose wisely. We got primaries coming up here, and if you've got somebody who only recently started talking about how much they're against these Republicans, and just last election cycle were running ads about I love working with the Republicans and I hate Joe Biden. Well, I don't trust that person. And you can't criticize me for that. You cannot criticize me for somebody doing that much of a direct U-turn. Now, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think that if Trump feels as if this is going to derail things further, I think Noem's gone. I don't think he's got a lot of like for Noem anyway. But yeah, it will be a hoot if they decide to fight this, because watching her get impeached would be a delight. Chicago, Seattle. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bam! Blue Ant Media and Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hour 2 up next.
Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at
Cohorts and Liberal Justice weekdays from 8 to 11 on AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. In Arizona, a shooting involving the Border Patrol about 10 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border has left one person in critical condition. The FBI says it's investigating an alleged assault on a federal officer, and the subject is in custody. The area is a common path for drug smugglers and migrants who illegally cross the border. On the most recent deadly shooting of a protester in Minneapolis, Saga Magani reports President Trump is withholding judgment.
Asked whether Alex Preddy's killing was justified.
We're doing a big investigation. I want to see the investigation. I'm going to be watching over it. I want a very honorable and honest investigation. I have to see it myself.
The president notes he sent border czar Tom Homan to take over the Minnesota immigration crackdown, effectively sidelining both Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Asked if Noem will resign,
no,
and said the same when asked if Preddy was an assassin, as some of his top staffers have claimed. His remarks came a day after Minnesota's top federal judge ordered ICE's acting chief to appear in court Friday, saying the administration has not complied with orders to hold hearings for detained immigrants. Sagar Magani, Washington.
President Trump is in Iowa this afternoon, where he's to deliver a speech on affordability. And Hai Panjwani reports the president's immigration crackdown contributed to a slowing of U.S. population growth.
The nation's population hit nearly 342 million people in 2025. That's according to population estimates released by the U.S. Census Bureau. The 0.5% growth rate was a sharp drop from 2024's almost 1% growth rate, which was the highest since 2001 and fueled by immigration. I'm Haya Panjwani.
On Wall Street, while more stocks fell than rose, the S&P closed at a new all-time high. It was up 0.4%. This is AP News.
As a social influencer, my days can be busy. 4 a.m., I hit the gym. 4:32, protein smoothie. 5:08, save time and money bundling my home and auto insurance with Progressive. Wait, if I bundle and save time, what would I do then? Just sit here and reflect? Like, why am I qualified to influence anyone? And how those weights are hollow? And half of my followers are bots?
You could save time and money bundling your home and auto when you switch to Progressive. It's one less thing to worry about during your already busy day. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
While retinitis pigmentosa takes Mark's vision, his family gives him hope, whether at the family business or at home with his wife and sons. He knows he's not fighting alone. For 50 years, the Foundation Fighting Blindness has funded research into treatments and cures for blinding retinal diseases, providing hope to people with vision loss. And for Mark, winning the fight means being there for his family. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Help us end blinding diseases at fightingblindness.
In today's uncertain times, Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces believes that a fire can add comfort and security to your life. At Woodland, our mission is to connect you to a place for fire that works.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces installed our wood stove years ago, and we still love it. Watching the fire, feeling the heat, is a joy we experience every day. And knowing we have a reliable heat source makes us feel snug and safe.
There are many choices in wood, gas, or electric. For diversity and styles, at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we display over 180 models, and 35 of these are burning displays. You can experience the glow and warmth of a live fire.
Whether wood, gas, or electric, find a fire that warms your heart, a fire that adds comfort and security to your life. See the many choices at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, located on the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis, and online at woodlandstoves.com.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces since 1977. For over 48 years, our slogan has been, out of the ordinary products and services. Our mission is to get you a fireplace that works in your life.
AM 950 would like to thank everyone who joined and donated during our winter membership drive. Your support shows that Minnesotans still value an independent progressive radio station that delivers facts, not spin. AM 950 is locally owned, based right here in the Twin Cities, and dedicated to uplifting small businesses and diverse communities. At a time when some voices are being pushed aside, AM 950 refuses to be silenced. Please help keep progressive radio on the air. Visit am950radio.com and donate today.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 8. Tonight, clear with a low of 2 below. And Wednesday, sunny with a high near 7. Since 1984, Cafe Latte has been serving up gourmet soup, sandwiches, and salads in a relaxed cafeteria setting. Everything's made fresh with real ingredients, no artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Located off Victoria and Grand. Learn more or place your order at cafelatte.com. That's cafelatte.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show here on your Tuesday, broadcasting on Blue Amp Media at blueamp.co on Substack. That's blueamp.co, and of course on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Brett is kind enough to join us in studio. Hi, Brett. How are we today?
Hey, doing all right. How about you?
I'm fine. Although I will say I'm kind of happy that we, of course, there's a local politician, Aaron McQuaid, who's here in town, and apparently the Democrats are coalescing around some restrictions on ICE that DHS is required to cooperate with state probes. The Border Patrol has to stay at the border, so they can no longer come into Minneapolis and shoot people in the middle of East Street. Warrants for arrest, IDs, body cams, and then ICE out of churches and schools. And Aaron McQuaid points out, it's like, wait, so this is a big win for Democrats, basically reiterating 3 things that are already technically the law. One thing that is at best is a best practice, and one thing that is already a rule up until 6 months ago. They basically nothing about staying out of hospitals, healthcare facilities, daycares, any of that stuff. I agree with her wholeheartedly. I mean, it just tells me how far to the right the Democratic Party has gone, that they're just looking for the bare minimum of things that they can do without, to try to, hey, we got to get those crazy liberals who need to vote for us in the primaries thinking that we're kind of new age progressives again. And the reality is that I agree with it. You have a chance right now to really try to fix some things, especially with the government shutdown coming down. Don't just go with the lowest common denominator stuff just because 20 Democrats want to basically still keep voting with Republicans as much as possible.
Yeah, you need some teeth on that too. I mean, certainly the Trump administration is not known for following the law. So what's to say if you pass this, they're going to obey what you pass?
Exactly. I mean, you have to have some, much larger restrictions. And I think the real thing is getting rid of ICE altogether. You don't need to have ICE. You have other agencies that can do this. You can, so I just.
Keep in mind, ICE is only, 20 years old. We had other agencies that did this before ICE existed.
Exactly. I wanted to, so have you been out? The Winter Carnival here is in Minnesota. It kicked off this weekend. I went over on Sunday night and I went down to Rice Park in St. Paul and saw the ice carvings. I'll post some of the pictures a little bit later on. One of them there of a cuttlefish that's got the little light on the end of them. That's really good. That's a really good one. But they've got a lot of cool things out there in Rice Park. Always, they do a nice job out there. And then I went up to the snow sculpture competition, which is over in the fairgrounds. And most of them look pretty good. There was one there that my wife and I were kind of like, okay, we don't quite know what happened. It's almost like somebody vandalized it. I now know what happened. After 3 days of sculpting in sub-zero temperatures on Sunday, Team Bees in the Schnees, this is the name of our snow sculpting team. Bees in the Schnees added the text "Ice Out MN" to their snow sculpture of the 2026 Minnesota State Snow Sculpting Competition. The team said it felt right to do just one day after the killing of Alex Preddy by federal agents over the weekend, but in less than an hour, staff working the competition of the Vulcan Snow Park had apparently, now, by the way, that's just FYI for everyone out there listening that's on Blue Amp, Vulcan Snow Park does not mean Vulcans as in Spock. The people that kind of run the Winter Carnival are creatively known as the Vulcans. Because, for heat, because this is it's the coldest time of the year here. So they kind of do this whole thing where it's actually a lot of fun. If you should go to it, it's a good time. But so it's not Vulcan. It's not, we're not getting Picard or Kirk going on here. Okay. The staff working at the Vulcan Snow Park had apparently removed the text with a shovel and smashed the whistle. The team said, so wait a second. So the guy carves a whistle and you have deemed the whistle is political. We knew we were breaking the rules. We knew, okay, so they knew that. I guess the political thing there is the Ice Out Minnesota. We knew we were breaking the rules. We knew that something like this might happen, but we didn't know that they would deface it, said the artist. The disqualification, I totally understand, but defacing is kind of wild. And yeah, we went out and saw this. Like, there's one out there that doesn't quite. What did they stop halfway through it? And now we know the truth is that the Vulcans basically went out there. It's like, how dare you point out the fact that people are gunning down Minnesotans in the streets? There's both sides to the story here, Matt. Tired of this crap. The large representation was of a face included a canister of chemical irritant, tornado for hair, a gas mask that hat worn by the and the hat worn by the 5-year-old Liam, with the little Muppet hat that had the little strings on, the blue one. So they did that. Vulcan Snow Park didn't respond to multiple requests from the Star Tribune. The competition states sculptures should be family-friendly and non-political in nature. 2 other sculptures had representations of Minneapolis ice resistance, but were not disqualified or disfaced. I saw one that had one of the bird logos that you've seen now with the loon logos in the back of it, which I thought, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that was, as a matter of fact, when I heard that they defaced this, I thought that was the one they did. I think that was a Labubu. It was like you defaced the Labubu statue. All right. The 2 that made the sculpture, Anna and Jurgen, Giant Whistle, Jason Quick, Alex Walton, and Justin of the team Steam Builders made a giant Labubu head. That's the one I saw. And so so basically they left those there, but the other one that says Ice Out Minnesota, which, by the way, could mean just you're waiting for the lakes to go clean. It's it is a phrase we actually do use here. When's ice out in Minnesota? That's what we said. Am I going to be taxed now if I say, hey, is Badema-Cosca? Is it ice out over on Badema-Cosca right now? Yeah, apparently so. Apparently so. There are a lot of cowards right now, and I have no problem saying this. There's a lot of cowards who have not said a damn thing about the fact that a militarized federal police force has come into our town, killed 2 of our citizens, and is abusing the people of this city at an ungodly rate. And when forced, they have to try to get this, well, we gotta stay neutral. Why? In case, ICE agents decide to raid the snow park, the Vulcan Snow Park? I don't think there's so when historically will you allow this to happen? Will it be forever that you guys are going to protect ice and make sure ice never gets mocked or made fun of in a snow sculpture ever again? Or in 10 years or so, after we've calmed down and people have forgotten about the fact that federal agents murdered a few people in our city, then we might be a little more tolerant of it. But I'm just tired of cowards that basically are always looking to, there's some MAGA guy that might not like the fact that I'm telling the truth. I'm tired of it.
We really hope that tensions just come down in the city. Kind of like those corporate statements we saw the other day.
Hey, both sides need to stop it. Well, unless the governor is gunning people down in the street, which he's not, then I think your both sides crap is a little bit, I get it. You guys love MAGA. You love the fact, especially the corporate world. You get a lot of money from him. I get it. He's basically said, I'll screw over all your employees and give you all their money. Just go along with me. And you're like, yay, hurt them. I get it. But if you can't look at what the freaking hell is going on right now in this city and say, you know what? That's bad. Like McNeil, the GOP candidate, who said, yeah, this is wrong. And he didn't mix words. This is not the Republican Party I know, and I don't want any part of this. But, someone carved Ice Out Minnesota on a snow sculpture, and that's the real problem here. That's the real thing we got to take care of.
I think this person was really big on their snow fishing or their ice fishing, and they didn't have a chance. Ice out.
Yeah. I mean, do you realize you have an ice carving and a snow carving competition? Do you realize how hard it is for you going to be to regulate ice at some point here? I think it's just now you've just basically got it to where everyone needs to be creative. And are you going to do that? Or is when you go out there and look at these carvings and stuff, are you going to constantly look? It's like, well, is an ICE agent going to be offended by this? What if we did a sculpture of an ICE agent throwing a gas canister? Would that both sides it for you enough?
That sculpture there, it's just a guy that's playing a referee. He's not actually there as a protester. Yeah, just a referee. With the whistle.
There he is. Who doesn't look? World Cup. The World Cup's coming, man. That's a referee. They did have a giant banana at the snow sculpting contest. It is a giant banana. Actually, the best one was the bear head where he's eating honeycomb. That's actually really good. I mean, that's like, I couldn't have done that. I'll post some pictures of this stuff later, but yeah, come on, guys. Fine, you want to disqualify them, but you feeling as if you have to prevent the public from seeing anything that makes ice look bad. I would have actually been the most loyal fan if you let that snow sculpture stand and just say, hey, put a sign out there saying disqualified because we don't allow political stuff, but we didn't want to ruin it. I would have been all for that. You think they could have gotten away with that one?
Yeah. Seems like a reasonable compromise to me.
Yeah. 952-946-6205. You and Cooligan, are you talking about snow sculptures? Is that part of your discussion?
Not today, unfortunately. No, we are talking about, well, you just mentioned Chris Madel dropping out of the race. We're going to talk about the ramifications of that, as well as what's happening with Amy Klobuchar. When she going to announce her run for governor, at least anticipated run for governor, plus how the tide is finally turning against ICE in Minnesota. Finally.
Well, no, I think it had been turning a long time. I think it's been turning since Renee Good was shot. I think now it's just the news media and everyone else is realizing, at some point ICE is going to leave and you're going to be faced with a whole bunch of people who are really mad that you basically didn't say anything. So they're trying their hardest to put out a press release that says something without saying anything.
Well, now is the time to make a courageous stand.
Yeah, that's like, thank God those guys are gone. Really? No one's buying it. All right. It's Brett right here with Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer right here on AM 950 and
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson back with you here on this Tuesday afternoon as we are joined, as usual on Tuesdays, by the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer, Patrick Cooligan, to talk about some of the stories that they have been working on for the past week or so. Make sure you go to minnesotareformer.com to learn more about their great reporting covering Minnesota news and politics. As today, as you might imagine, we'll spend a good bulk of our time talking about the latest on the situation with ICE in Minnesota and the tide possibly turning against ICE, plus some updates on the governor's race on both the Republican and the Democratic side, since we've had some big developments with the Republicans and possibly a new development with the DFL in terms of what's happening with Amy Klobuchar. So got a lot to get to today. Patrick, as always, thanks for coming on back on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's start off talking about the latest on ICE and Minnesota, because the tide seems to possibly be turning against ICE in Minnesota, not just from people involved in politics who are protesting against ICE, but even a lot of people who typically aren't involved in politics are now calling out ICE's actions. And of course, that has led to Greg Bovino leaving the state, as well as possibly some other ICE agents leaving. So is the tide turning, do you think, Patrick, or why might this be happening? Do you believe any of this that's happening? The tide is really turning, or what's your assessment on the situation in Minnesota, since obviously we had the events that happened this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think the killing certainly shocked and hurt all of us, but the response on the part of the administration, I think, created a pretty big political problem for them. People watched the videos and they came away, obviously with a far different impression than what the administration put out right after Alex Preddy was killed, when Stephen Miller, the president's top domestic policy advisor, called him an assassin, and Bovino said that that Alex Preddy was en route to commit a massacre, was the word he used, and the Department of Homeland Security falsely stated that Alex Preddy brandished the weapon. That was incorrect, and so I think a lot of Republicans really started to doubt the president's strategy here. And I think the fact that Alex Preddy was an ICU nurse who helps veterans at the VA, he was a licensed, law-abiding gun owner. I think that's was another problem, because it definitely arouse the passions of the Second Amendment community, especially when folks close to the administration said, well, question why he should be carrying a gun to a protest, which was, kind of hilarious because we saw 6 years ago people carrying long guns into state capitals around the country for protests, and the Republican quote unquote patriots carrying guns to protests has become just the backdrop of American politics. Of course, there's Kyle Rittenhouse brought an AR to a protest in Wisconsin and became a right-wing hero. So all of that has created fissures in the president's coalition, and so he really, if you can say nothing else about Trump, it's he's very aware of media narrative and optics, and he's watching this coverage, and I'm sure he was livid. And unlike some people around him, he understands when it's time to make a course correction. So I think now what we're left with is there's two competing forces. One is they are very much don't believe in surrender on anything, and I think they feel like if they surrender on this, it's going to be a real loss. On the other hand, the president has a history of rather adroitly declaring victory, success, and pulling up stakes, whether or not he's actually achieved anything. And so obviously we want to push him into the latter scenario, and it seems like that's what Governor Tim Walz was trying to achieve with the phone call he had with Trump yesterday and some of his public comments since then.
Yeah, absolutely. And despite the fact that I think Trump and his team obviously lied about what we all saw in Minneapolis, they're now trying to make us believe that they're atoning for the situation, for lack of a better way of putting it. But yeah, it's going to be tough to say if that really works, will work on what happened here in Minnesota, since they spent weeks and weeks lying. And now all of a sudden, well, they're doing the right thing. Yeah, it's going to be a tough sell for them to make. But do want to bring up the seismic shift that took place in the Minnesota governor's race because of what we've seen over the past few days. And that has to do with a rather prominent Republican, or at least a guy who is starting to gain some momentum, dropping out of the race. That's Chris McNeil, as his exit from the race has really shaken up the GOP and has forced, I would say, a difficult conversation about the fracturing of the Republicans in Minnesota over civil liberties and also immigration enforcement. Now, McNeil made a very specific and provocative claim about Hispanic and Asian law enforcement officers being pulled over in pretextual stops by ICE. And to me, this really seemed to be the thing that pushed Madel over the edge, especially with his law enforcement connections. What did you make out of this? Because he certainly brought up a lot of problems that he has with the current Republican agenda. But to me, just with his law enforcement background, that's what really seemed to kind of be the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, when he was talking about these officers that were also getting profiled and pulled over.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking. I don't know him, but our reporter, Michelle Griffith, had a sit down with him and has gotten to know him pretty well. And the fact that he was apparently offering legal counsel to Jonathan Ross, who killed Renee Good a few weeks ago, certainly led me to believe that he was going to be a supporter of the president's immigration crackdown here. And instead, he turns around. The other issue that's interesting is that we think that he had a decent shot to win over the delegates needed at a Republican convention. And once you win the convention, you have a really good shot at becoming the Republican nominee. He's a guy who's practiced law as a trial lawyer for a long time. He's well-spoken and can communicate to juries, and it's the type of thing that is transferable skill to talking to delegates. So not only did it seem like he would be on the side of Trump's immigration crackdown, but he had a decent shot at the nomination. And not only does he drop out, he does it in he lights the bridge on fire, gives an interview to the Wall Street Journal, which is a longtime Republican Oregon, and essentially says he's leaving the Republican Party over this. And as you mentioned, he said that he talked to police officers Asian with Asian heritage and Latino heritage, and they had themselves been profiled. And for whatever else you want to say about Madel and his defense of police officers accused of wrongdoing, he is a defense attorney. And defense attorneys are pretty firm about the Bill of Rights and the rights of the accused. And of course, what we're seeing here in Minneapolis is a trampling of those rights. And so I was pleasantly surprised to see that principled opposition. And of course, it was another ripple in that placid pond of the Trump coalition. It seemed like it came at the worst time possible for Trump.
So how is the Minnesota Republican base, or how do you think they'll react to, I guess, what we would call a law and order candidate now essentially blowing the whistle on federal law enforcement tactics like Operation Metro Surge and dropping out of the race? How are Republicans reacting so far to this announcement?
I think what they probably are going to have to start grappling with, and this can segue into our next conversation about the governor's race, is that this is a pretty tough moment for local Republicans, because no matter what you think about immigration enforcement, I think a lot of Republicans still are suspicious of several thousand federal officers coming here and engaging in the kind of tactics they have been. And in the case of Alex Preddy, they killed a law-abiding gun owner and then made a bunch of false claims about him. So, the instinct of Republican elected officials at this point is to just always toe the line for Trump, because we've seen what happens when you don't. But I think that it's quite possible that Republicans and Republican-leaning independents are not so sure about this immigration enforcement surge here. And that's something that professional Republicans and elected officials are going to have to grapple with. And we've seen this in the case of Senator Julia Coleman. She's a Southwest suburban Republican. Zach Duckworth, another South Metro Republican state senator who said we need a tactical pause, or whatever phrase you want to use. And so people in these swing seats, I think, understand the grave risks to Republicans here.
Yeah, Madel might have been largely reading the writing on the wall, saying that there's no chance for the Republicans to, win a statewide race in Minnesota, given the current political situation. So might have been relatively smart for him, politically speaking, to drop out of that race when he's largely, and I think correctly assessing that it's going to be very difficult for Republicans to win statewide this year, especially in that governor's race, which, let's continue talking about this, because as you brought up in our email this morning, this caught me by surprise, but caucuses are next Tuesday. That's February 3rd. And why I highlight that is that, at least on the DFL side, we still don't really have a clear front runner that at least has officially announced that they're running for governor. And that includes Amy Klobuchar, who is the big name that has still not yet announced. So are we expecting any sort of announcement this week from Amy Klobuchar entering the race, or does it not necessarily matter with that caucus deadline coming up with her lack of an announcement on entering that race?
Yeah, Politico reported today that she was supposed to officially launch today. And then it became completely inappropriate to do so just a couple days after the killing of Alex Preddy. So I think that sets her back. I'm not exactly sure what the timetable is. I mean, they're still getting ready to go. I don't think that she necessarily has to announce before the caucus, but I think probably it would be wise to, because you want to get your supporters out, who then in turn will make it to the state convention, and you're going to have a good unifying convention. Because to be honest, I think she probably has some problems with some of the Minnesota Democratic grassroots. The party has become younger, more diverse, and more progressive and more urban since Amy Klobuchar became a statewide candidate in 2006. And, there's a lot of frustration with Democratic office holders. I mean, some of it's maybe a little unfair, but I think there's just this simmering resentment that they haven't done more to try to stop the Trump agenda all the way back to January 20th of 2025, but certainly in the last 2 months, when they've sent all these federal officers here. Senator Klobuchar has been certainly out and vocal in recent days, but she's still going to have to, I think, with the Democratic base, she's going to have to deal with that perception of the Washington insider, and who is going along to get along in this new Trump era, as opposed to fighting tooth and nail against it.
Do you think she possibly could get tripped up in a primary if she were to face a well-known DFLer in a primary race? Of course, which is easier said than done, because it largely looks like that DFLers are probably going, or at least prominent names are probably going to stay out of that race should she enter, just given the fact that many have said, well, they're not going to make an announcement until they find out what's happening with Klobuchar. But if she did have a well-funded or at least a well-known challenger, do you think that could cause her any issues in terms of trying to win that DFL primary?
I doubt it. Name recognition is so important in politics, and hers is certainly close to 100%. And she wins by big margins in general elections. And I think Democrats want to hold on to the governor's seat, so I'm sure she'd be fine. I mean, I think it would be good for the party to have a robust discussion about the future of the DFL and the future of the state of Minnesota over the next 6 months or so before a primary. But unfortunately, I just think that there's kind of a wait your turn attitude, and so I don't think it's going to happen. But I think it would be good.
Yeah, I'm largely with you that it's unlikely we'll see a well-known challenger emerge, since, as you said, it's kind of that wait your turn mentality that we often see, not with just Minnesota Democrats, but largely a lot of political parties around the country right now. Well, we have been speaking with Patrick Houlihan. He is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. Make sure you go to minnesotareformer.com to find the latest news on what they've been covering, especially with ICE here in the Twin Cities, as they've put forth a lot of great articles that you should check out. Again, minnesotareformer.com. Patrick, as always, thanks for coming back on the show today. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Again, catch those Minnesota Reformer interviews every Tuesday here on AM 950 as part of the Matt McNeil Show. We'll take a break and turn things back over to Matt McNeil up next.
When you wake up in the morning and the light has hurt your head.
Winter reading, losing yourself under a blanket with the fireplace blazing away while submerging yourself in a book and trying to finish just one more page? Winter nights are the perfect time to read, and that's where Next Chapter Booksellers can help. They're independently owned and have all the bestsellers and new releases. Not sure what to get? Their friendly booksellers are great at recommendations. That's your winter reading headquarters. Next Chapter Booksellers off Snelling and Grand. More at nextchapterbooksellers.com.
Hi, this is Frank Brown with Minuteman Press Uptown. It's election season. If you're campaigning for a candidate, your outreach needs top quality union printed materials, from direct mail and yard signs to door hangers, buttons, T-shirts, and flyers. Minuteman Uptown is your union shop to get people to the polls. We print everything. We'll keep your candidate top of mind. Target your message with a laser focus and maximize your voter turnout efforts. Get started today at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Hi, I'm Mary T. Caring for others runs deep in my family. My grandmother, Rosa, was a nurse who cared for people in their homes more than a century ago. Inspired by her compassion, my mother, Margaret, and I founded the Mary T. family of companies nearly 50 years ago. Today, we continue that legacy across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Maryland, and Arizona, providing senior living, assisted living with memory care, home health, hospice care, rental housing, and support for people with disabilities. Each service is personal, creative, and focuses on the unique needs of those we serve. We also believe in joy and community, which is why we opened Crooner Supper Club in Fridley, a place to celebrate life with music, laughter, and connection. At Mary T., we're proud to be a Minnesota family company rooted in compassion, inclusion, and respect, and proud supporters of AM 950 and the values that this station represents. Visit MaryTinc.com to learn more.
Congratulations to Mary T, named one of the most admired CEOs of 2026 by the Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal.
It's no secret that medical care costs are soaring, with nursing home and skilled nursing care costs being some of the highest. You don't have to deplete your savings in order to receive long-term care. At Schroman Law, we work with families to develop and implement strategic planning for medical assistance for long-term care, for assisted living, nursing home care, or home-based care. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, our job is to help you find a place for fire. Our displays include over 180 models in diverse styles, and we have over 35 burning displays. Come and experience the glow and warmth of a live fire.
Some say there are only two seasons in Minnesota: road construction and winter. Hi, this is Laura, and I agree there are two seasons in Minnesota: summer and fireplace season. I bought my wood stove for Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces in 2005, and every season after summer comes the time when we fire up the wood stove, get out our favorite music, and discover the warmth of fire. Our dog Pumpkin remembers the fire too. He stations himself right there, legs up in the air, just enjoying the warmth of the fire. With the wood stove, we are able to keep the main area of the house toasty warm, while the thermostat is set at an energy efficient 64 degrees. Discover your fireplace season. Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces today.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, clear with a low of 2 below, then Wednesday, sunshine with a high of 9. There's something for everybody at Cafe Latte in St. Paul, from award-winning soup, salad, sandwiches, and desserts to treats from the bakery made fresh daily and a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte is located on the corner of Grand Avenue and Victoria Street. Check them out at cafelatte.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Nice to have you with us here today. 952-946-6205. So one of the things I've noticed about the Minnesota Republicans in the last really about 24 hours is that they have frantically tried. Well, on one side, they're trying to play off the fact that their initial plan with this whole thing, with ICE, was to basically say, hey, white Minnesotans, stay inside your house and close the door and lock the door and ignore all the screams from the people outside the door. Okay. That was their original, that was America and freedom, was stay hiding in your door and ignore the crimes against humanity that we're going to commit outside the door. A lot of Republicans, since Trump clearly is starting to bail on this idea, have put forward the idea of, well, all I wanted was to have Donald Trump, Governor Walz, sit down and work out it. I didn't want any of this, but thank God that Governor Walz finally came to his senses and said, hey, they're killing people, so I guess I better do something. That's how they're kind of playing off. Now, mind you, I'm going to say this, and I have no problem saying this. I'm going to say at least half of the elected Republicans in the state of Minnesota, or candidates that are running, wanted more Minneapolis people dead. That they feel as if 2 was a good start. That their hatred of the city is so bad that they wanted 30 or 40 dead Minneapolis people. Just start killing people and teach them a lesson for daring to not do what Republicans say. I mean, it goes back, and I want to remind people that there apparently was some sort of attempt by the former union head of the Minneapolis Police Department, an absolute tool job named Bob Kroll, and Paul Gazelka, who is the Senate Majority Leader, to try to overthrow the governor of the state during the George Floyd uprising. That they had colluded with some sort of plan. So, like, I guess Bob Kroll was going to become the commandant of Minneapolis and go in there and crack skulls and do whatever he needed to do. And they were just going to do this. And back then, that was in Trump's first term. They basically said, yeah, we can't do this. The president can't just undo an election. And of course, then they frantically said, no, we never had discussions like this. But there clearly seemed to be something. There was something more than smoke there. No, I would say that at least half the Republicans in the state of Minnesota are happy Renee Good and Alex Preddy are dead, wish more people were dead, and only now realizing how unpopular they are becoming, that they basically are now trying to adopt this. Okay, well, thank gosh they got a solution. And they're going hard to try to say this upcoming election is not about the fact that we welcomed in this dictator in and the carnage on our streets. And this is the main thing I want, because I do not want this getting lost. And in Minnesota, the House and Senate are getting ready to adjourn, or not adjourn, to come together and start, writing laws. And there has to be a full investigation into how the hell we got here. Because if you're looking for the people that basically got 2 Minnesotans killed, got the assault on countless of Minnesotans, the arrest and harassments of thousands of Minnesotans, the arrest of children, the dangling of children as bait, and the stunning amount of human rights violations in the state, it is the Republican Party of Minnesota, and it is particularly the House Republicans led by Speaker Lisa Demuth. And the House Republicans, they're the ones who are responsible for all the bad things that have happened. And here's, why. They admitted back in December that they basically brought that Nick Shirley, the Utah mama's boy, into the city specifically to do a racist video against the Somali daycares. They specifically did this, and they wanted it to be as racist as possible. And once again, this was a lie-filled racist video that he did with the goal of getting it to Trump, because at this point, Governor Walz is running for a 3rd term, and they wanted Trump, who does not like Walz, to go after Walz and try to fan the flames of this. Now, I want to back up here, too, because this was a problem for the Democrats of Minnesota. This whole fraud story was something where you had the U.S. attorney, who, by the way, has resigned because he was told he had to investigate Renee Good's wife, and he said, we're not going to do that. And was refused to allow to investigate the murder of Renee Good. So he resigned, as well as most of the U.S. attorneys there. He was going to be a major linchpin for the Republican Party of Minnesota's attacks on the Democrats. Well, he walked away. So you have this, this whole thing that they were going to do. This was going to be their big attack. They decided to basically see if they could make this even a bigger scandal and make it last by getting Trump involved. And there's where the mistake was, that Trump is not someone you can control. Stephen Miller saw an opportunity to be as racist as possible. Kristi Noem, who's got the South Dakota inferiority complex with Minnesota. Sorry, it's just a better state. She basically was looking for a way to do this. And so they bring in the ICE agents to do this. And they put people in charge to ramp this up. That's what they did. That's how it got here. So we do not have dead Minnesotans in the streets of Minneapolis, St. Paul without the House Republicans starting this whole thing off, which does lead to some legit questions. And these are questions that we need answers to. First of all, did Demuth and the Minnesota GOP initiate contact to bring Shirley here? Because somebody did. I doubt that Nick Shirley, the Utah Mama's boy, I doubt greatly that he basically said, well, I'm up to date on Somali daycares in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I'm going to go out and do this story. No, somebody welcomed him in. So did they contact him to bring him in specifically to do this hit piece, which led to 2 dead Minnesotans? We know that the racist list of targets that was given to Nick Shirley and David, his buddy, came from the Minnesota House Committee Administrator. So this is actually somebody on the staff of the Minnesota House. And if I'm not mistaken, came from an email, which was a work email, which is a huge question. Because once again, the original video was racist. So this is basically the Minnesota House having staff members compile a racist list to give Nick Shirley with directions in Google Maps. That has been covered in the Star Tribune and stuff. So we know some taxpayer dollars went to this, but then there's the question about Nick Shirley himself. Clearly he was paid to come up here. Someone paid for his airline ticket. Someone paid for his hotel room. Someone paid for his car. Someone paid for his meals. Who did that? Did Demuth and the Minnesota GOP pay for Shirley to come here? Did you pay him with taxpayer dollars? So did the taxpayers basically fund a racist attack video? Did Somali taxpayers fund an anti-Somali racist video, propaganda video? Like I said, who paid for his hotel? Who paid for his car? Who paid for his meals? Considering official Minnesota House staff was involved, state taxpayer dollars were spent on this racist video. Did other state resources personnel go to help make the racist video? That's a legitimate question. You guys want to talk about fraud? Well, if you guys are basically spending taxpayer dollars or even directing state employees to help the racist video get produced in any capacity, well, you're wasting taxpayer dollars. Who in the Minnesota GOP encouraged Trump to unleash hell on the state? Was part of the discussion saying, hey, if you kill 1 or 2 Minnesotans, that's okay with us? Who did that? Was that Demuth and the House Republicans? Was that your financial backers? Was that the state party themselves? Did they basically say, send them on in here, get them, because that was their tone when all this started? Was it Tom Emmer? Fat Casper? Was it him? Because once again, their tone was, get them at the beginning of this. So clearly there was somebody who encouraged Trump to unleash hell on Minnesota. And I have a question of, did you actually encourage Trump and tell ICE to basically, if you kill a few Minnesotans, we'll do what we can to make sure you never serve any time? I have a question. These are questions I need answered. And then the question that's most mind-boggling to me is this. Nick Shirley, we have video of him doing this, try to force his way into daycares to photograph children without consent from their parents. Why in the hell has Nick Shirley not been charged with a crime? Child endangerment would probably be the first one I'd go with. Because I can tell you right now, if I took a Somali man out of Minneapolis and took him out to some of the suburbs and had him try to force his way into a daycare out there with a camera to photograph kids out there, not only would he get arrested, I actually don't think he would get arrested. He'd be shot in the parking lot. He'd be killed in the parking lot as a deranged man trying to get at the children. But Nick Shirley does that, and nobody's going to charge him with a crime? He clearly tried to force his way into daycares to photograph children without parental consent. Clearly, what has happened has changed the dynamic. This is a story that came out today. Party has some runaways, had some runaway left before the election day to shift the spotlight back on the Democrats. 10 months away from his lifetime in politics, said GOP State Senator Jim Abler, who argued the jury is still out on his party's chances in the fall. No, you're the party of the dictatorship of gunning people down in the street. So no, it's not. Abler, a Republican from Anoka, has criticized some aspects of the ICE operation in Minnesota and represents what is likely to be a political swing district in the November elections. He said his district is divided. He senses rage, frankly, on both sides. Okay, I'm going to stop. Stop with this. Pretty much almost every Republican I know is like, okay, this is not what I wanted to happen. So this idea, once again, of, well, there's two sides. Some people love the fact that we're shooting Minnesotans in the streets. When you say this, Chamber of Commerce, Republicans, when you say that both sides, you're saying there's one side is a legitimate side, is the pro-gunning people down in the street. That's what you're saying. Stop it. You sound like idiots. There is no two sides to this unless you're a freaking psychopath, okay? And I get it. You have far-right base who wants as many bodies as possible in the city of Minneapolis, and you need their vote come primary time. So stop with this, there were good people on both sides of Charlottesville. No, there weren't. This is you're either pro gunning down civilians or anti. Stop with this. Both sides, there's discussion. He then does what the standard Republican thing is right now. I'm calling on Walz and Trump to put aside their differences and talk. Still said Operation Metro Surge. Abler says the name of Trump's administration is given to the deployment of ICE agents to Minnesota is just off the rails and in some cases detaining citizens without due process. Here's yet another Republican admitting, yeah, this is not what we need. And that last line is almost an admission that this is so damn bad that it's going to be the Republican Party is going to have to basically convince people, that whole thing with that whole dance with fascism we welcomed into the state, we were just joking. By the way, DFL, Democrats in Minnesota, if you allow them to, every day from now until election day should be, they brought the fascists in to start shooting. They shot a guy for carrying a gun legally. Tell you what, that will leave a mark and it will not heal before November. You should not let these people off the hook because, once again, they desperately want to try to turn the attention from the fact that they welcome fascism to the steps of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and those two dead bodies are basically the people who are most responsible, in my mind, are the people that welcomed all this chaos in. Lisa Demuth and the Minnesota Republicans in the Minnesota House. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I would love to have answers to any of those questions. It is the Matt McNeil Show here on your Tuesday.
Hey, this is Andy Otto, Executive Director of Twin Cities Pride and your host of Twin Cities Pride Amplified. Our community needs your help. Twin Cities Pride is collecting donations to help our local community in need. We're collecting everything from shelf-stable food to household cleaning supplies, infant care items, and personal care products at our Pride Cultural Arts Center. If you're looking to help, reach out to us at info@tcpride.org or just stop by 1201 Harmon Place in Minneapolis. It's our time to take care of our community and take care of each other all year long.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been telling you about my friends at Snap Construction, who are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior construction company in the metro. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all their reviews online. Winter is the most cost-effective time of the year to complete your construction project. A majority of Minnesotans choose to have their work completed on their home in the summer when they should be enjoying the weather. As a result, the demand for labor in the summer is much higher. The most cost-effective way to improve or restore your home is in the winter due to the lower demand. Right now, Snap Construction is offering an additional 30% off of labor to the AM 950 listeners on your next construction project between now and the end of February. Call 612-333-SNAP and mention AM950 for an additional 30% off. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. Don't wait to get a free estimate by calling 612-333-SNAP or find them online at snapconstruction.com. Financing options available.
I am the amazing Cassandra, a mechanical fortune teller who can predict the exact date and time of your passing. But 5 teenagers have died, and I alone have the power to save them if they can pass my test of song. Their musical trials begin January 16th at Lyric Arts Theater in Anoka. Ride the cyclone along with them at lyricarts.org.
Hi, I'm Beth Thompson, owner of Big Hill Books in the charming Bryn Mawr neighborhood. Our customers call us the happiest bookstore in the Twin Cities because here, joy isn't an escape, it's resistance. You'll find bookshelves full of inspiration, 2 cats who think they run the place, and Gigi, our gentle shop dog. Visit us at 405 Penn Avenue South or online at bighillbooks.com. And be sure to say you heard about us on AM 950. We can't wait to meet you.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. So let me get into some updates here about ICE today. One of the real, once again, they're not done here. They're still out there violating human rights and being just as cruel as they can be. Despite claims the number of border agents would be withdrawing from Minnesota on Tuesday, there are no signs that their ops are abating. Among the reports Tuesday, an incident where 2 men were detained outside of a market at Columbia Heights in the North Metro, leaving a woman holding a baby in a flood of tears, asking the agents why. That's pretty heartbreaking. If you've seen the video of it, it's not. She goes to hug one of the men who's cuffed in the back of the ICE vehicle, and she breaks away. And as she breaks away, he ran from the vehicle and was chased by the agents. Last night, and now this actually might have been on Sunday night. So last night, Minneapolis ICE deployed the LRAD, long-range acoustic device weapon, against peaceful protesters at close range. Exposure to this weapon can cause permanent hearing loss, ruptured eardrums, tinnitus, panic responses, vertigo, balance issues, migraines, and nausea. This goes on to say this is a war crime. This is apparently the same machine they used on the Venezuelan troops, which basically I guess they turned it in Venezuela. They turned it up to 11. In Minneapolis, they turned it up to only 6 and 7, I guess. But in Venezuela, it led to bleeding and vomiting blood. This audio weapon they've used. Which, can I just say, you're in a major metro area. You're really jeopardizing the local population when you try to zap them with the sound beam from the Incredible Hulk thing. The other thing I want to make sure I mention here is they're still paying attention to this court case against these protesters that mildly disrupted a church service for 5 minutes. Still plenty of time to get the collection plate around at the church service. An ill-advised post on official White House social media may actually have damaged the Trump administration's own case against at least one of the people who disrupted the Sunday service at St. Paul Church, where the pastor is an ICE agent. The post shared Thursday depicts a federal agent escorting Twin Cities attorney and civil rights activist Nakima Levy-Armstrong earlier in the morning. The agent's face is blurred. Levy-Armstrong appears contorted and covered in tears, but the image from the White House differed starkly from the actual image. They fixed it. They basically confirmed they did it. The problem for the government, the prosecution is banned from making statements, including social media posts that could influence potential jurors. So they probably just sabotaged their own case, which, once again, it's on brand. They're that stupid. They just really are. Native Roots Radio is up next. Have a wonderful evening. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Until then, see ya.
This is Chad, owner of